Introduce Mark.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Mark, and I'm an alcoholic. And I'm really grateful to be here. I really enjoy coming and speaking. I love carrying the message. I love Alcoholics Anonymous. I love the 12 steps. And, this program saved my life. If it wasn't for the 12 steps and Alcoholics Anonymous, I don't know where I'd be today. And I spent 19 years trying to find out, and getting experiences out there that proved to me over and over and over that no matter how hard I tried to manage my life and continue drinking, that it always ended up in bad experiences. I'd have temporary what seemed like good times, and I'd be trying to always, have that good time or trying to just feel better. And I always seemed to get evidence that proved to me that it wasn't working. But, so I'm really grateful to be here, and I'm always grateful to be in a meeting. Sometimes I'm in a meeting and I'm not so excited to be there, but by the time I leave, either I leave and I'm like, man, that meeting sucked. Or I leave and I'm like, man, that was a good meeting. But no matter what happens is when I leave the meeting, I'm thinking about the meeting. I'm not thinking about drinking, which is a huge difference. And what it was like for me was, man, it was a roller coaster ride through life, trying to fit in and trying to live like a normal person. And I didn't know what a normal person was. I would look out at different people, different families, different, people that had careers or people that worked or families, married couples. Growing up, my perception of what a normal person was based on what I saw. And so I thought, okay, well, one day maybe I'll go to college, I'll finish college. One day I'll get a family, have some kids. I'll make some good money. I'll get a couple cars in the garage, get a house, and I'll live that American dream. And once that happens, I'm going to be happy. And on the way, I'm going to drink because I love to drink, And growing up, I started drinking when I was about, 12 years old. I got my first real drunk when I was 14, blackout drunk. I put a couple of drinks in me, and that obsession, that craving that kicked in, and I couldn't stop, and I drank to blackout. Because the way I drank was you put a little bit in there, and I start feeling good, and I'm like logical, right? So I'm like, well, if I put a little bit and I feel good, then if I drink more, I'll probably feel even better, and I did, and I would. But the only problem was I didn't know you'd black out, but I'd end up blacking out. Getting a teenager into high school, and, you watch the movies and you see the house parties and stuff like that, and I'm like, man, I wonder what that was like. And one time my friends in the neighborhood decided to have a house party and be guys and girls there, and I'm going to show up and see what happens. And prior to that, I didn't have the courage to talk to anybody, and, especially girls. I was very shy and very insecure. I had a lot of acne on my face, so I wasn't really excited about trying to get rejected, And so I didn't really have a lot of experiences, with girls or anything like that. And, and as far as guys and stuff, I was really insecure. I was a follower, If people wanted to do stuff, I'd go along for the ride. And so when we had this house party, and I put a couple drinks inside of me, all of a sudden, I had this new freedom and this new happiness. I had a spiritual experience. All of a sudden, all the fears I had of you and the people around me just faded. All of a sudden, I could walk up to you and say, hey, what's up? How you doing? All of a sudden, I can get up and dance, and I can do all this stuff, and I can be the life of the party, and everybody's like, man, what's up, Mark? And I really enjoyed that. I thought, man, I had arrived. This is what I've been waiting for. And so I couldn't wait for the next party. I couldn't wait for the next time where I could drink. Being 16 years old, I didn't really have access to a lot of alcohol. But the times that I did and the times that, I didn't, I was thinking about the next time I could. And, and there was some consequences. By the time I was 19 years old, I was already a full-blown alcoholic. I couldn't wait to drink, and I drank. I would drink as much as I could. I tried to drink to the point of blackout, but not blacking out. That's how I tried to manage and control my drinking. I wasn't trying to stop drinking. I was just trying to drink without really bad consequences, at least for me. And, 19 years old, I got my first DUI. I went to my first meeting. They gave me a court card and sent me to an AA meeting. And I remember that it was like a Saturday night or something. I went to my first meeting, and I had already planned a party at my house. So I had a bunch of friends there already, all the alcohol's there, DJs there, and I'll be right back, guys. Don't get drunk till I get back. You know, that's what I told them. And I went to my meeting, and I sat in the meeting. I probably had a couple beers already, and I didn't really hear what anybody said. I mean, I might have heard something, but I wasn't really interested in getting sober. I wasn't really here. I didn't have no desire to stop drinking. I had a desire to leave the meeting so I could go get drunk. You know, and I went back to the house, and the party was on, you know, and that's just the way it was. And I got through my 6 or 7 meetings or whatever it was. I think it was 6 at that time. And, you know, I had some consequences. But the consequences could not get me sober. I used to tell my friends when I was 18 years old, you know, I'm like, look, we're going to go drink. They're like, hey, what do you want to do? We're playing Nintendo, we're playing PlayStation or whatever the console was at that time. We're sitting there just hanging out. A friend will come over and be like, what do you want to do? And it's like 7 o'clock. Somebody will say, let's go to TJ. I'm like, that's a great idea. Let's go. How much money we got? We got $15. All right, we got enough for a 12-pack. All right, you got the other stuff? Okay, ready? Let's go. We get in the car and we take out the TJ. You know, and then over there, you know, get blackout over there is pretty crazy. You know, end up in jail in TJ. It's not a good experience. But even that didn't stop me. You know, came back. When I was 19 years old, because I dropped out of school because I just wanted to hang out and party and hang out with my friends. So I dropped out of high school when I was a junior, and I went to continuation school. And when I was in continuation school, that's where everybody like me, you know, like to drink and do those other things and hang out. And 3 hours a day of school, man, that'll work. You know, just get those packets done and get on with business, get on with life. You know, and that's what we did. And after about a year of doing that, because now I'm 19 years old, or you know, and I'm still haven't graduated high school. I'm in like my 5th year. And I'm just looking at the same routine over and over. And I don't know what happened at that time, but, you know, I remember my dad would tell me, Mark, you got to do something with your life. You know, you could be anything you want. As long as you go to school and get straight A's, you could do anything you want. And what I heard was, if you get straight A's, you can drink. You could do anything you want, including drinking, as long as you get straight A's. So I'm like, hey, go to college, and I could drink. That sounds like, you know, at least I'll have more money so I could do whatever I want. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? Because I was like, man, I don't want to struggle. I was working in a restaurant, and I'm like, man, this isn't enough money to drink the way I want to drink, you know, and have a place and do all that stuff in the future. Hopefully one day have a family. So I decided to go to college, and I went to college, and I still continued to drink, but during that time I was able to focus a lot of my attention on school. But the times I wasn't studying or doing that, I was drinking. That's what I did. And, you know, I ended up having a daughter. When I was 19, I ended up getting married, having two more children. I ended up finishing college, but the last year, because I got good grades up to my junior year, then my last year, okay, I'm going to graduate. You know, it was like I was in high school, because I was like, the senior year, I'll just like, you know, I'll just show up and do the minimum and drink and party, you know, and I'd take alcohol to school, and they had a bar on campus, so I just hang out in there. And I barely graduated at the end. My GPA was still high, but the last year, I didn't have that motivation. I didn't have that drive. I kind of just was like, whatever, you know. And when I graduated, the job that was given to me, because I had gotten a great job, my dream job, my senior year was offered to me, which added to that. I didn't care about school anymore. And they called me back towards the end of the year and said, Mark, we've got to take back our offer because we can't have anybody that has a DUI. Man, I was shattered, you know. And so what did I do? I drank. I remember one time I got drunk and I called him and said, you don't know who I am, you don't know who you're missing, and you know, my pride and ego. You don't know who you lost and who you're, man, I'm the best engineer there is on the planet. Blah, 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 blah. I called like 11 o'clock at night and left a voicemail, you know. And then, oh, I was really drunk, I really was. I was a mess. And then, anyway, so then I didn't, you know, I was still drinking, and now I'm out of school, I don't have no job, I got no money, and for 5 months I'm drinking and playing my guitar, poor me, you know, poor me, this and that. And I remember I was married at the time, and my marriage was going to be destroyed, just like that. And I went to the church and, you know, started getting connected there, and it helped for some time. It helped me to get to a place where I could, you know, at least manage my drinking a little bit, just enough, you know. But the times that I stopped drinking, I'm still restless, irritable, and discontent. I'm not comfortable with me. I can't be honest with you with what I'm feeling. I can't tell you what's going on in my life. I'm just not drinking. And I'm trying to be normal. And I'm having such a hard time doing that. You know, I'm going to work and And everybody's just kind of doing their job, and I'm sitting there looking around like, all right, I got to just like do something, because I would be so uncomfortable. And the times that I put the alcohol in there, all of a sudden I was comfortable, and because I'd be so, but once I put a few drinks in there, it was like, I could breathe, and I felt like, all right, like, what are we going to do? And then eventually it got to a place where I was making good money. I got some good jobs. I got a job in an oil refinery, which is like my dream. And there I was again. I had arrived, Here I was, I'm the big shot. My pride and ego, the arrogance, I'd walk around and drink alcohol and go into bars and try to tell people how great I was and how awesome I was and all these things. And, I look back at it now, I'm like, man, no wonder nobody wanted to hang out with me. No wonder they were always distancing themselves. There'd always be groups, and when I'd come in, the groups would kind of move to different places, and I'd have to jump in there. Hey, what's up? With alcohol, I could jump in and be like, what's up, And it was crazy, I ended up moving to Long Beach. I ended up getting a divorce. My alcoholism took me to horrible places. Book talks about incomprehensible demoralization. And that demoralization, yes, it includes all the sex stuff. When I first came in, that's all I thought that was, and I was like, oh man. But the demoralization for me was I lost all my character. I had no more morals when it came to anything. The principles of the program, like the principles like honesty, hope, faith, courage, integrity. I didn't have any more of that. I drank it all away, and so I became what the book calls an unlovely creature. I was the guy, you would see drunk and be like, man, that guy's a mess, Alcoholics would be telling me, man, I think you got a problem, man. You better cut back. You gotta stop. You gotta do something, man. I don't know. When alcoholics don't even want to hang out with you, it's like, man. Then what I would do, I'd just move to a different place. I'd go to a different bar, I'd go hang out with different people. That's what I did, And towards the end of my drinking, the last 4 years of my drinking was where I thought, prior to coming in here and working the steps, the last 4 years is where I thought I became an alcoholic. Prior to that, I thought I just loved alcohol and I just liked to drink. But the last 4 years is where my life got so unmanageable, became so obvious that I couldn't hide it anymore. And, I had gone through a divorce and I pretended I was 18 years old again so I can drink and act like an 18-year-old again. And, it was just, I was just, it's like, and then I thought about it after. I'm like, 18 years old, you're not even legal to drink at that time. But because when I was 18, I knew how to drink, I knew how to get alcohol and all that. And so I went to the hotel room and I was trying to drink myself to death. That's what I was doing. I was trying to drink myself to death. And the only reason I was working was to get enough money to buy alcohol. And I would work at a job until they figured me out. Once they figured me out, they'd let me go, and they'd give me a last check, and I'd be like, thank you, see ya. And I'd go cash that check, and I'd have alcohol, and I'd plan it out, okay, I can drink for a month. And then I'd have to get a job before that month so I could keep that alcohol coming. All I had was the hotel room, my work, which was across the street, and the bar that I could walk to that has a live band. That was like the extent of my life, and that's where I was. I can't say I was comfortable with that, but it was, as long as I had that, at least I could live one day at a time, I drank one day at a time. I didn't know how to live one day at a time, but I knew how to drink one day at a time. As long as I drank, I would live. That's how I felt. And I moved to Pasadena to be closer to my sister. I didn't know anybody else there, but I moved there, and I got a job out in Pasadena, and again, my drinking, there I was, losing jobs, getting a different place, get an apartment, lose that apartment, lose that job, get another apartment, lose that one. I lost my license from DUIs and driving on suspended licenses. And I got to a place where I was driving my car, with no tags, no license, stopped making the payments on it. And I just stopped caring about any responsibilities. I would drive to the store and I'd buy a 12-pack and put it in the front seat, open a beer and drink it right there and throw the cans in the front seat. I would just throw them in the front seat. I didn't care. And, amazingly, I didn't get pulled over, during that time I was doing that. But there was one time when, there were a lot of times where I got to the place where, man, I'd wake up in so much terror. Those 4 horsemen that she was talking about, that terror, bewilderment, frustration, and despair, I got to a place where I couldn't fall asleep without having alcohol in my system. And if I didn't drink enough, I'd wake up in the middle of the night grasping for air because it was like a nightmare. And then I'd wake up in the morning and the birds would be singing, no clouds in the sky, and I would just be in so much fear and terror, the phone would ring, and I would just be so scared. I'd have to go outside, and I'm like, man, or I'd have to go to work, you know, and I'd be like, okay, do I have any beer in the fridge? I'd have to drink a couple just to get out the door. I didn't have no courage. I didn't even know what I was doing. I didn't even know I was coming or going. I didn't know. I got to a place where I didn't even know why I was alive anymore. Why am I living? You know, what's my purpose? I can't call myself a father because I don't live with my kids. I can't call myself an engineer because I'm not working. You know, what do I call myself? What am I? You know, I'm not a dad. I'm not working. You know, I got to a place where I started to question why I was alive. And then when I started questioning why I was alive, I was like, you know, what's up, God? You know, maybe not in these exact words, but basically what I did was I got on my hands and my knees on my bed and I said, God, I said, please take my life, you know, take my life. I can't live like this anymore. I'm tired of this, you know, the same routine every day. I wake up, I go to the liquor store, go to work, whatever I do, I come home and I drink. I try to go to the bar. I'm spending too much money there. And I come home and I drink, and that's my same routine. What's my purpose? I can't do this. And I begged him to take my life. And I woke up that next morning and I was pissed because I was still alive. I was like, man, you couldn't even do that. You know, you couldn't even take my life. And then I was again, same routine. And I did that routine for 4 years, you know. And during those 4 years, I'd get to a place where I'd come to a meeting and I'd be buzzed. Or when I was sober, what I would do, when I didn't have any money, typically is when it was, is I would look up AA in the phone book and I'd find out where the meeting was. And so I knew where the meeting was, and then what would happen was I would drink. And one time I drank so much, and it was like a night like this. And I remember I was drinking during the day, and the next thing I remembered, I opened my eyes, and I was in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. I woke up in a blackout in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I was like, man, what am I doing here? This is what are you doing here? Like anywhere but here, you know? Go to the bar, anything else, but why'd you come to a meeting? But what was happening to me was I was starting to get that desire. You know, the only requirement for membership, AA membership, is a desire to stop drinking. And then I got to a place where I said, you know what, I'm done drinking. I'm done. I don't want this anymore because alcohol wasn't fun for me. At the end, alcohol was I just wanted to stop. I wanted to change my life. But what happened was I drank myself so far into oblivion, so far away from reality, that I got to a place where I didn't think I can come back. I got hopeless that I can come back. I had too many court cases. My family didn't like me. I hadn't seen my kids in a few years. And I didn't think I would be able to make it back to reality, to normal life. And so I come to this meeting. I didn't have any of that hope. I didn't have any of that hope. I came into the meeting, and I'd come buzzed. I'd come drinking. I'd drink a six-pack just to get the courage to come to the meeting, and I'd have a beer in the car, and I'd drink it on the break, and I'd come back, and after the meeting, I'd go buy more alcohol, and that's what I did. I just did that, you know. But I came long enough to at least pay attention because there was some desire, there was a little bit of willingness, and I would listen. And every once in a while, I would hear somebody say, get a sponsor, work the 12 steps. Get a sponsor, get the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, work the 12 steps. Every once in a while I'd hear that. And all the other times, I would hear, you know, problems. People would talk about their problems. Oh, I don't have my kids. I don't have a job, I need to find a job. Oh, I'm going through a divorce, Oh, this, all these problems. I'm like, man, relationship, job. I'm like, cool, okay, I'm drinking. All right, I just lost my job. I guess I need to go get a job. And I should probably call my kids. So what I would do is I would go get those things. I'd come back into the meeting. I'd still be drinking and be like, cool, all right, well, if that's all I got to do, I can do that. I know how to get a job. I know how to get a relationship. I know how to get those things, even when I'm drinking. The problem is I don't know how to keep that. I don't know how to manage that. I don't know how to live and be a human being in those situations. And so I thought, man, okay. And the times I heard get a big book and mark those steps, I'd read on the wall. I'd sit back and look at the wall. Okay, admitted, powers, okay, God. The exact nature of my wrongs. I'm like, man, there's no way I'm telling anybody what's going on with me. You know, I can be honest. And when you talk to me outside, I'm like, man, I'm good, man. I have this great job over here, man. I'm cool, I'm good. Everything's good. And I would go through the meetings telling you that everything was okay, that I got this, and I was going to be all right. And then what would happen was I'd lose that job, I'd lose that relationship, I'd lose the car, all that stuff. I got to a place where I was like, okay, all right, I'm going to get a sponsor. I'm going to get this sponsor thing that you guys are talking about. I didn't know what a sponsor was. I thought a sponsor was just somebody that you got their number, you got a little closer to them than you did everybody else in the meeting, and they'll help you some way, So I got this sponsor, and he took me to a bunch of meetings. And I would hear in the meetings, 90 meetings, 90 days. 90 meetings in 90 days. Don't drink no matter what. And I'm like, cool, all right, I'm just going to hang out with this guy. I'm going to get in the car whenever he says it. I'm going to go to all these meetings, and I'm going to get sober. And so 90 meetings in 90 days, I get 20. I'm like, oh, I got to do it again. 30, 40, 10, 5, 1. And then one time I got 70, right? I got 70. And I was like, man, I'm good. I'm good, I'm going to be all right. Then all of a sudden a situation was happening, and some people were going to come over, and something was going to happen, and I was cool. And all of a sudden I got some fear in me, and I ran to the liquor store and grabbed the 12-pack and downed it before they got there. 70 days. I couldn't make it to the 90 days. I'm like, man, if I got to make 90 meetings in 90 days, there's no way I'm going to get sober. Maybe there's some miracle that happens when you get to 90 days. I don't know. I didn't know. But I thought, man, 90 days, I'm doomed. But still, when I look at those steps, I'm like, I'm still not willing to do that. There's no way, So I was happy I had a sponsor that only told me to go to meetings. Because then I could do whatever I want, But every time I drank, my life got worse. Every time I drank, I was missing more of me, Every time I drank, it got worse and worse. I got to a place where I was so hopeless. I got so desperate, like Jackie was talking about. I got to that place of desperation. And I woke up one day, and I've been praying. I'm praying, every day. God, please help me, but I'm going to go drink a beer in the fridge because I don't know what to do. I can't stop. I can't stop. No matter how great the necessity or the wish, like she was saying, no matter how much I wanted it, I couldn't stop. I was baffled. I did not have the power. Talk about being humiliated, humbled. And I finally came into this room one day, and I raised my hand, and I was terrified. I had come to the room for 4 years telling you, man, everything's good. I got a great job. I got all this stuff. But that day I came in and I was scared, and everybody saw it. I'm sure they did, and I told them, my name's Mark. I'm an alcoholic. I said, and I'm scared. I said, because when I walk out that door, I haven't drank today, but it's the last meeting of the day, and all I know how to do is go to the liquor store and buy a 12-pack and start there. I said, I don't want to do that, and I don't know how not to do that, I need help. And after that meeting, a few guys got around me, and they were like, are you willing to go to any length? And I was like, yes. Yes, I'm willing to go to any length. They're like, seriously, are you really willing? I'm like, yes, I'm willing to go to any length. And they gave me some direction, and I said, well, I'm not sure if I'm willing to do that, and that's exactly how it happened. And they said, well, they're like, what are you going to do? I'm like, well, I don't know. I said, because once you guys leave, I'm going to the liquor store. And they said, look, man, because they were asking me, well, because I couldn't go home because where I was living was a bad environment that I was going to drink. I knew I was going to drink. And they said, well, can't you get a hotel room? I'm like, I drink in hotels, They're like, can you stay with family? I'm like, my family don't want nothing to do with me. Well, can you do, all the options they were giving me, I was like, I can't. It was like 11 o'clock at night, and they said, you know what, one of our friends has a sober living. Are you willing to go to a sober living? That'll be a good place to start. We'll pick you up in the morning and get you to a meeting. And I sat there for 15 minutes. They waited for me, and I just thought about it, And while I was sitting there, I was thinking, all I thought about was the liquor store. It's like in the movie, that dark alley, it's like death. And I was like, man, I definitely don't want, I already know where that goes. I've done it for so many years. I already know that one. I haven't tried this one, but man, I'm so scared. I'm not sure if, I was so full of fear. And that, to me, was my turning point. A turning point to me is a place where I don't want to go that way, and I don't want to go that way. I'm afraid of that, and I'm afraid of that. I'm in a powerless place. That's what powerlessness looks like. And anyways, I made a decision to go to the sober living, and I was definitely not happy. I had no alcohol in me. I was going through withdrawals. I didn't know what was going on. And they picked me up. I didn't sleep that night. They picked me up for a 6 o'clock meeting, got me to an 8 o'clock meeting, went to a 10 o'clock meeting, 12 o'clock meeting, went to other fellowships, then went to another. I went to like 3 to 5 meetings every single day. This time I wasn't trying to do 90 meetings in 90 days. I was going to any length to save my life. I was going to any length so I didn't have to pick up that drink. And during that time, it's like I didn't want to drink. I did not want to drink. But what I had with me was so many feelings, emotions, and pain, so much inside of me that I could not just, it was just like, it was too much. And I was going to these meetings, and I hear it again, get a sponsor, work the steps, get a sponsor, work the steps. There was one man that I heard, and I heard him share, and I'd hear him share. And every time he shared, there was something different about him than the rest of the people in the meetings. And I would look at him and be like, man. And every time I go to a meeting, I'd pay attention and I'd watch him, and I'd see all these guys around him. And and then I'd go up closer to just to listen. I wasn't trying to get involved, but I would just want to listen. And those were his sponsees, And the 4 years that I was coming here, I saw people come in just like me, beat down. I saw them getting sponsors and working the steps during that 4-year period. I kept coming back. Their lives were coming together. They were sober. They were smiling. They had new clothes. I had the same clothes for like 3 years, They had new clothes. They had gotten their license back. They got in a car. They got relationships, and they're happy. And they're carrying a message. And as their lives are getting better, my life's going downhill. And, I'd hear this guy talk, and I finally was like, man, I got his number. And I had another sponsor. I got another sponsor. And I got 3 sponsors before I called this guy. And all the other sponsors were like, just get to meetings. I'm like, man, I already tried that, man. It's like, and finally what I got to the point was when I came back and I was desperate. I didn't surrender to a fellowship. I didn't surrender to a sponsor. I didn't surrender to all the stuff that goes on in the meetings. I knew that when I came back, I was surrendering to the 12 steps. I needed a sponsor that was going to help me get through this book and work those 12 steps so that I'd never have to drink again and so that I can have some kind of decent life. I didn't have any expectation other than that I would stop drinking and slowly over time my life might come back together. At least like rebuild relationships with family and friends and stuff, and maybe build some new ones based on, a different way of life. And so I got that sponsor. I called him up and I said, hi, my name's Mark. I got your number. Would you sponsor me? He's like, oh, I'd be happy to sponsor you. He's like, you got a big book of Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions? And I said, yeah, I got those books. I had those books for like 4 years, and I had sponsors that never told me to open that book. They would tell me to bring the book with me, and I'd have the book in the car, and I'd be like, when are we going to read this, Oh, man, we just got to get to a bunch of meetings. I'd be like, all right, whatever. But he told me right within 5 minutes of talking to him, do you have a big book? I said, yeah. He said, open it up to the doctor's opinion and read the doctor's opinion, Actually, I read it with one of his sponsees sat down with me and read the doctor's opinion with me, and I saw what I suffered from. I have a twofold disease. I have an obsession of the mind, and I have an allergy in my body. The allergy that I have in my body is what differentiates me from normal drinkers. I can go to a Super Bowl party with family and friends, and we could both get totally drunk. The next day they can wake up and go to work. They can put it down. They can say, okay, next year's Super Bowl or something. But the next day I'm drunk again. They're like, Mark, what's up, man? Super Bowl's over. What's happening? I'm like, no, man, the party's on. Dude, get the guitar. Let's keep going. That's how I did it. And every day. I'd have a 30-day hangover. I didn't even know. I wouldn't hit a hangover for like 30 days because I wouldn't let the hangover come because I'd just put more inside of me. And but I understood what the allergy was, the allergy differential. Not everybody has the allergy. When I put alcohol in me, it triggers that allergy, which triggers the craving, which says, I'm going to drink as much as I can. I don't have any choice in that, normal people don't drink 12 Cokes or 12 bottled waters in like 2 hours. They just don't. You know what I'm saying? You know, people see me drink and they might be thinking I'm just really thirsty or something like that. You know, it's like, man, you drink like 12 beers. You know, I'm like, man, I'm thirsty. You know, but the thing was, I needed to satisfy that craving. I thought I was in control, but really what was happening is that disease that was inside of me was taking over. And I would find myself doing things that I never thought I'd do. You know, and so I got the obsession of the mind, the allergy of the body. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Then he had me read Bill's story and use Bill's story as an outline for my life. And because if you tell me to write a story, I'm going to write like this novel. You know, I'm going to tell you all the things that happened to me and all this stuff. But Bill's story as an outline, I was able to identify. You know, I was able to see the unmanageability of my life at the age of 16 years old when I first started getting drunk. You know, unmanageability is when I'm 17 years old and I got my license and we go buy a bunch of 40s of alcohol, beer, and I want to drink, so I have my 14-year-old friend drive me to the carnival. You know, that's unmanageable. You know, that's how my life was at 17. My life was unmanageable way before the 4 years where I really thought it was. It helped me to see that I was, I admitted I was powerless and that my life had become unmanageable. And I didn't have to prove it to anybody. Even the people in the meetings were like, dude, your life was so unmanageable. You used to come in the meetings drunk. It was obvious, you know. And then for the second step, he had me read We Agnostics. And in We Agnostics, you know, like Jackie was talking about, that simple cornerstone, you know. Because when I came in the second step, my sponsor's like, man, we got to find a power greater than yourself. You need a power. I'm like, man, I got a power. You know, I've been to church. I've read the Bible. I know what's up. You know, I know what's going on. He's like, oh, okay, all right. He's like, well, did that power keep you sober? What are you doing here? I was like, I'm like, I couldn't argue. I was like, man, I was drunk at the meetings. I can't even lie, you know. The facts were that the power greater than myself that I thought I had, I just said I had it. My actions and my behaviors and my life and my thinking, you know, my higher power was me. My higher power was my thinking. I thought that I had the answers, that you guys were all wrong, and that I'm going to be all right. But alcohol beat me down. You guys convinced me there was a solution and that I can recover, but alcohol convinced me that I was an alcoholic. It beat me down. It beat me down. It beat me down until I came crawling in this room and asked for help. And it could be humiliating. You know, I looked at it at that time like I was willing, you know, I need help. You know, it was my first act of humility. It was my first act of honesty. It was the first time in my life that I really meant that I need help with my alcoholism and that I want to stop, you know. And he told me, all right, higher power, you're not God. Do you believe that there's a God other than you? Do you believe that you're not the center of the universe and everything doesn't revolve around you? And that there's something greater out there than you? I was like, yeah, I can believe that. He's like, all right, let's start there. We're ready for step 3. You know, we agnostics have spiritual terms. He's like, pick some spiritual terms and start there. I'm like, all right, all loving, all powerful, you know, and we'll start there, all loving, all powerful, you know, because if I want a higher power, I want the one with all the power. You know, if there's other higher powers, I want the higher power that's in charge of those higher powers. You know, and then I want him to love me unconditionally because I already know I'm going to have to go through that 4th and 5th step. And I don't want to get struck by lightning when I tell you what happened in my life, you know. I want to be forgiven, you know, unconditional love, you know. And so, all right, ready for step 3. You know, I didn't have to I didn't have to go back to church. I didn't have to do all these things and find that power, then come back, okay, guys, I found the power. I'm ready for step 3. If I had to do that, there goes my 90 meetings in 90 days again. Now I'm going to drink again. I couldn't waste any time, you know. I couldn't waste any time. And, you know, just to back up for a second, you know, because I hear a lot of stuff in the meetings, and some of the stuff I hear, it causes me pain. And the reason it causes me pain because I could have died out there, you know. My life was at stake. And when I read this book, it talks about, you know, we seek the solution like, you know, with the desperation of drowning men. You know, so if you're a real alcoholic, you know, the book says that you either accept spiritual help or you're doomed to an alcoholic death. You know, And for some people, that might be like, oh man, he's trying to scare me, he's trying to scare me. See, but when I came in desperate and they told me that, I was like, dude, I know, I'm going to die. I'm doomed, I know. So I accepted that spiritual help. I already knew I was going to die, so it was like, what I got to lose, So, that's what it was for me. And so when I hear 90 meetings in 90 days, and I hear some sponsees, and I'm talking to sponsees, and I'm like, man, cool, you got a sponsor? They're like, yeah. I'm like, have you started working the steps? They're like, no, my sponsor told me I got to wait 30 days. I'm like, really? I'm like, okay, so you're desperate, right? Yeah, man, I want to stay sober. I'm like, okay, cool. So if you're in the ocean and you're drowning, right? You're swimming there. Maybe you're not drowning, but you're like, man, I hope there's a boat nearby. And you're there, and a boat comes by on the first day, and the guy has a life preserver, and he looks at you, and you're swimming right there, saying, hey, can you help me? And he's like, yeah, I could. I got a life preserver right here. I got a ladder right here. I can throw it down when let me see. How long you been there? You know what? Let's wait another 30 days. Let's wait another 30 days because I don't think you're serious to get on this boat. And when I look at it like that, I feel pain. And I feel pain for the newcomer because I'm like, oh my God, because I'm sitting there, okay, that's your sponsor, so he's the one you got to get the life preserver from, and I'm sitting there with the life preserver, and I want to throw it in, but I got to trust and believe in a power greater than myself that he's in control, not me. And I have to practice these principles to not say, who's your sponsor? I need to talk to that guy. Because I could have died. I see people die in this program. I go to funerals. And, today I work with other people, and I see them work the steps, and I see that there's a solution. I'm convinced. So when I got to the third step, I memorized the third step prayer. You had me memorize the third step prayer that's found in the book. God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and to do with me as you will. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do your will. Take away my difficulties, so that victory over them may bear witness to those that would help us with the power of your love and your way of life. May I do your will always. So I'm like, cool, I memorized it. And he's like, okay, come on. And we're in the sober living. We got on our hands and knees. I'm like, wait a minute, whoa, what's this? And all of a sudden I memorized the prayer. I became like this little kid, like, oh, what are we doing? And when I did that, I was offering myself to God, and I experienced what that felt like. That's what humility is for me. Humility is me doing something that I'm not used to doing and saying I need help to do it and relying on something else other than me, which is very uncomfortable. But when I went through that experience and I came up off that, and we sat down and he read to me the next step, which is step 4, and it says at once, followed by a personal inventory. He gave me some sheets that had the same columns in the book in the 4th step. And I went home and I did not start writing. I didn't, But what I left with was, now I was thinking of, man, I got to write what? Oh, man. I got to write some resentments. He said, start with the resentments. But I'm looking at the resentments and I'm like, oh, man, all right, I could probably get through that. And then he gave me some sheets for the fear, and I'm like, I could probably get through that. Then there was one called sex relations, and I was like, nah, I'm not going to do that one. So I kind of stopped that one, and when I backed off from that one, I backed off from the whole thing. But what happened was, what the book says is we put the searchlight. You start putting the searchlight in your life. So even though you're not like, I'm not going to do my 4th step, what happens is you start thinking. I started thinking about it. And I started thinking about the people I had harmed. I started thinking, I'm coming to meetings, I'm hearing it. So I'm starting to think about it more and more until I'm getting to a place where I know I need to do it. And so I finally got pen to paper. And the principle behind the 4th step is courage. What I found out, by not being willing to do a 4th step, meant I had no courage. I was a chicken. I had no courage. Here I was drinking, thinking I was this big shot, acting like I'm all big and bad with everybody. But when it came down to put a pen and paper and put a name on the resentment list, I was scared. I understood. I know what courage is today. So what's awesome is when you go through those steps, you're not going to be baffled anymore. You're going to be able to look around this room and you're going to see right through everybody. But see, the thing is, you're not going to look like that and look at them and think, oh, see, I know who you are. You're going to look with compassion, love, tolerance, because you're going to really want to see them overcome, you know. But without working these steps, I didn't care. I didn't care about you. I wouldn't be here. It's Saturday night. Are you kidding me? There's no way. You know, today I come here to carry a message. And if I leave here and there's one person that hears it, I've done my job, you know. My experience is that it's more than one person. I don't know who it is. It's none of my business who it is. I'm not here to get acknowledgement. What I'm here for is to carry a message. The message is found in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. If you're a real alcoholic, you know. On page 20 and 21 is where you find out what a real alcoholic is. And I'm going to read this one because when I read this, I was like, man, that makes sense. You know, it says moderate drinkers, because there's people that drink alcohol that are not alcoholics. There are some people in this room that are not alcoholic. They come to meetings to drink the coffee. They come to meetings to chase the women. You know, they come to meetings to fellowship because people don't want them in the bar anymore. You know, so they come hang out here so they can have some fellowship because they don't have any friends, you know. I came here drowning. You know, I'm not just trying to hang out. I wasn't trying to hang out on your boat. I got on the boat because I was dying and drowning, you know. But it says here, moderate drinkers have little trouble in giving up liquor entirely if they have good reason for it. They can take it or leave it alone. They don't need the desire. They can say, you know what, I don't want this anymore. And they don't have to drink ever again. That's not me. You know. Then we have a certain type of hard drinker who drinks hard liquor, let's say. Drinks, falling down drunk, passing out. He looks like an alcoholic. It doesn't say that, I said that. Then we have a certain type of hard drinker. He may have the habit badly enough, he calls it a habit, all right? Badly enough to gradually impair him physically and mentally. It may cause him to die a few years before his time. If a sufficiently strong reason, ill health, falling in love, change of environment, or a warning from the doctor becomes operative, this man can also stop or moderate. Although he may find it difficult and troublesome and may even need some medical attention, he might go through the ranch and come out and never have to drink again without coming to meetings and working the steps. That is not the real alcoholic. The book after that says, but what about the real alcoholic? He may start off as a moderate drinker. He may or may not become a continuous hard drinker. But at some stage of his drinking career, he begins to lose all control of his liquor consumption once he starts to drink. You know, here's the fellow that's puzzling you, especially in his lack of control. He does observe incredibly tragic things while drinking. He's a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. You know? So when you get to this, look at, see how many pages that is right there? Okay, that's the moderate. This is how many pages it gets to if you're not the real alcoholic. Once you get to the real alcoholic and you read that and you say, man, I'm the real one, okay, that's you. Okay? That's you. All the other people who don't have to work the steps to stay sober, that's them. Okay? So when you get to that place and you're not a real alcoholic, you can stop, put the book down, don't have to work the steps, you don't have to come to the meetings. You know? You don't have to. But if you're the real alcoholic, then it says, you know, right here in We Agnostics, it says, to one who feels, okay, but continue as he is means disaster, especially if he is an alcoholic of the hopeless variety. To be doomed an alcoholic death or to live on a spiritual basis are not always easy alternatives to face. So if you're the real alcoholic, you have two choices. Either work the steps, have a spiritual experience, remove the obsession, happy, joyous, and free, all those promises, they're true. Or you're doomed to an alcoholic death. You know, keep it simple, right? Keep it simple fellowship. That's what we call this place. You know, but what do we like to do? You know, a lot of times I and others, we like to bring our own opinions and our problems and profound thoughts and all this stuff. No, bottom line is you get a sponsor, you work these steps. She was talking about those 100 men and women. We of Alcoholics Anonymous are more than 100 men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. To show others alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book. It gives very specific directions on how to work every single step. You get a sponsor that has working knowledge of this book and that 12-step and 12 traditions. You will have a spiritual experience that will remove the obsession. And once you have these principles working in your life, all of a sudden, you become willing to go to any length. All of a sudden, other people become willing to help you. It's amazing. It's amazing. So I'm working the steps, and I get my license back, and I start telling my friends around me that I need a car. My friend says, hey, my mom has a car. Come check it out. I ended up with the car like within a week of getting my license. You know, I go to a job interview, man, they like me. I'm like, man, God made everybody humble. And I told somebody that, and they're like, well, maybe you got a little bit of humility. I thought God changed everybody. I really did. And they're like, well, maybe he changed you. I'm like, wow, that's cool if he did. You know, I thought God was just making everything a certain way, you know. But I saw it like a little kid. I was like a child again, you know. And, man, I never thought I'd be in a relationship again. A relationship? Are you kidding? Relationship was devastation after devastation after devastation. Relationship with another human being? With a woman? Are you kidding me? There's no way. Yeah, there's no way. But working the steps, it's like, wow, okay. You know, I had the courage to actually get into a relationship, and I was scared. But it's awesome because the person that I'm with is willing to go any length too. You know? Why would I want to be with somebody that's not? You know, it just wouldn't make sense. You know, we got a common goal. We got a common purpose. We get to encourage each other. We get to grow together. We get to have spiritual experience together and share those things. I get to participate and experience, you know, the coming together of families. You know, I get to see that in my sponsees as well. You know, I get to be a part of that. It's not all about me today. You know, I get to go home. I'll make dinner. What do you want to eat? You don't like olives? No olives. We'll keep the olives out of it. You know, before, in my old self, I'd be like, look, I'm putting olives in it. If you don't like it, you're not going to eat it. You know? But today I get to be considerate, you know, and it's awesome. I told my sponsor one time back in Pasadena. Excuse me? Did you have something to say? Oh, I'm sorry. All right. I told my sponsor in Pasadena said, I told him, it's like a game. This whole program's like a game. You're telling me I practice these certain things and things turn out a certain way. It's like a game. He's like, it is a game. He's like, you just never knew how to play. You know? It's like Miss Pac-Man or Pac-Man. You ever play Pac-Man and you find the pattern, you never die? It's the same thing. And once you start getting the results, it's like, wow, all I had to do was that and not spend 19 years going through hell trying to figure it out. You know? But alcohol had to convince me. You know, if you're willing to go any length, then you're ready to work the steps. If you don't have a sponsor, if you're a man, you don't have a sponsor sitting here for me, I'm willing. I'll help you. I got a book in my car. You know, we can get in these steps. There's other people in this room that will sponsor as well. Go to meetings, look for the sponsor. Look for somebody who's living this thing. Don't just listen to the words. You know, watch their life. If they're not willing to sponsor you and they have a message, okay? That's like me saying, I have a cure for cancer and I got a bunch of pills in my pocket and you're dying of cancer, but I ain't going to give it to you because I can't. It's like, seriously? Yeah, I see the time. Thank you. You're going to close real quick anyways. But, anyways, if you're looking to get sober, want to stay sober, permanent sobriety is what this book promises, not drinking one day at a time. You're not going to not drink one day at a time. You're going to have permanent sobriety. You don't even think about drinking. You're going to be too busy living. You know, get a sponsor, work the steps, have a spiritual experience. The steps is where the power is. Thank you for letting me share.